And so to get refuge from the process of the thought process is to get refuge from suffering, because the thought process is a process in which the personality is being generated by this conversation, this narration of what's going on all the time, you know. So there's what's happening, and then there's what the voice in your head says is happening, right? It's always describing what's happening. If it wasn't describing what's happening, what would be happening? Yeah. So there's 8 billion descriptions of what's happening going on the planet, right? There, in those 8 billion descriptions of what's happening, there's a general agreement about certain things in terms of what time it is, right? In terms of the basics, you know. This is my body, there's time, there's space, there's a future, there's a past, and all that jazz, right? So we all have agreement about that. So the voice in our head is functioning with that understanding about those things. We're all on the same page about those things. Beyond that, it becomes unique to you. Your thoughts are different than mine, right? Beyond that, it becomes unique to you. And beyond that, the uniqueness of it is a function of your personal history, your conditioning. That's producing the thoughts that occur in the mind, right? But that personal history, the one thing that it has in common for all of us, right, is that the thinking activity is a necessary activity to keep the idea that the personality is real. It's a necessary activity to keep the idea that the personality is real, right? So when you go away from that thought process, right, the programming that is, right, has to generate your interest. It has to get you back in interest with what it's talking about, right? And how is it going to do that? How's it going to get your attention back, get you back in interest to what it's talking about? Once you start to break up, once the personality starts to break up, if you keep coming to classes like this and you keep listening to the teaching and you keep going to satsangs, that's a word for meetings about the truth, right? You keep doing that over time and you keep practicing meditation. Eventually, at some point, the personality is going to start to get weak, right? It's going to start to get weak, right? And when it starts to get weak, there's going to be periods in which you're relieved from the effect of it, right? If you've been at this for a while, you've probably had those experiences. They may be brief experiences, right? But it's an experience that you relieve from the effect of the thought activity for a brief period of time, and then it comes back in, right? So the refuge idea is when it comes back in and you go back into identifying with the body and the personality, right? The refuge is that you can continue to practice brief moments of awareness as many times as possible. Every time you do that, right, you're stepping outside of the thought activity. Every time you do that, you're stepping outside of the thought activity. If you keep doing that over time, right, and it starts to break up enough, right, then the system, the program that is, will have to generate something to pull you back in, to pull your attention back in. Yeah? So what will it do to do that? What will it do to do that? It'll have you start to become concerned about something, right? And you'll feel, when you get concerned about that something, whatever it is, right? You'll feel compelled to think about it, right? You'll feel compelled to think about it, right? And that's how the personality is using your attention to pull you back into the thought activity, not because it's going to solve the problem, because it's not. You know, it's not going to solve the problem, but that's not what it's intended to do. It's not intended to solve the problem. It's intended to have you experience yourself as a person in the body. That's what it's intended to do. That's why I was harping on retreats, right? Because the intellectual understanding of all this, right, has a certain value, right? It can be a refuge in a sense, right? Because it gives you an understanding of what's happening, right? But it doesn't replace the actual experience of the truth. An intellectual understanding doesn't replace the actual experience of the truth. That's why I have emphasized retreats, because if you go to a retreat, you have to put your ass where your head was, right? And if you have to put your ass where your head was all day long for 7 days, right, you'll become very clear about the voice in your head. You'll become very clear about that if you subject yourself to that experience, right? So I say that it's something that you should always look for an opportunity to do that at some point in the future. The voice in your head, the head will not allow you to do a retreat. So if you're depending on the head giving you permission to do it, forget about it. That's never going to happen. You have to do it in spite of the fact that the head doesn't want to do it. In fact, the head will, if you even think about going on a retreat, the head will start to counteract it. Oh, you don't want to do that. Well, what would it be like to be there all day, sitting for 30 minutes at a time all day long, and then going to bed and having to get up at 4:30 and do the whole thing again another day? What would it be like? Oh, you don't want to do that. The voice in your head will be saying, no, 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 no. Forget about that. That's not for you. Okay? So the only way you could go to a retreat is you would have to not follow that. In fact, you would have to completely ignore that and do it anyway. And that's not an easy thing for anybody to do, to subject yourself to that experience, right? As powerful as it could be, it's still very challenging just to allow yourself to go ahead and do it. No, you don't feel that you are love and compassion. Do you see? The personality will, see, the head is going to claim everything, right? That's what just happened. The head will claim everything. You know, you can't stop it from doing that, right? But you can be aware that it's doing it. And if you're aware that it's doing it, the fact that it's doing it doesn't have any power, because you see through it. You see what's going on. Yeah. You understand that when you're experiencing your true nature, you have nothing to protect, you have nothing to defend, you have nothing to fear. That's the truth, right? That's the truth. Even when you're even when you're experiencing being crazy, that's true. Even when you're 100% taking yourself to be the physical body and the personality, that's still true. And even when you're 100% taking yourself to be the physical body and the personality, you are still the awareness that has taken itself to be that. You get that? You are never, ever anything but the awareness. That's what you are all the time, no matter what the thoughts are. Right? So
personality just obscures that.
Well, the personality can't obscure it if you are clear about the teaching. If you're clear that the teaching is the truth, right? If you're clear that the teaching is the truth, the personality can obscure that. The personality can play in front of that, but you see that that's not real. You see, as long as you run this through the thought process, it's going to come out shit on the other side. That's the way it is. It's going to come out shit on the other side. It may come out to be interesting insights, interesting understanding, interesting material, and it will enhance the idea that the possibility that you can realize your true nature is real. You know, it'll have that seem real, right? But it's building up to nothing. It's building up to nothing, because when you're not thinking, you're experiencing reality. What is that reality? Nothing. Personality doesn't like that, right? Because the personality hears the word nothing to mean empty, void, right? No, that's the misinterpretation the personality makes, right? But the actual reality of nothing is no thing. That's all. Not a noun. You are not a noun. You're not a thing, right? What you are is something that is is moving and is at the same time not moving.
It's almost like the thought process, to me it sounds like, is like against us. It's like working against us.
Well, the thought process is a necessary reality because you couldn't exist and function in the world as the world is without it. So it's not that it's working against you unless you have nothing but it. If you have nothing but it, then you take yourself to be what it tells you you are. The head tells you you're the body. The head intercepts everything, claims everything, right? If it's meditation, you're meditating. The head will say, I'm meditating, right? If you're walking, the head will say, I'm walking, right? The head is going to claim everything all the time, right? But it's claiming everything has no power and has no significance when you see that the claiming that the head's doing of everything is only intended to keep the idea that the personality exists. That's all it is. So happiness is an experience that's already happening. And the experience of happiness that's already happening is the experience of the existence that you're experiencing, not what you take yourself to be. It's the experience of the existence, and if you experience that your existence is the existence of consciousness, then that experience of the existence of consciousness produces happiness, right? Sat, Chit, and Nanda, right, Bob? Sat, Chit, and Nanda. Existence, consciousness, happiness. So when the thought activity is not happening, that's what's there.
Yeah.
Existence.
So happiness isn't the problem, it's the pursuit of happiness, because you're already happy.
Well, the pursuit of happiness isn't a problem either because it's a necessary aspect of the process of the failure. You have to pursue happiness to eventually discover you can never reach it. If you look at the history, if you look at your personal history, right? Whenever you thought you were happy, did it last?
No.
No. Real happiness doesn't change. It doesn't come and go. If it comes and goes, it's not happiness. If it comes and goes, it's gratification. You got what you wanted. And when you got what you wanted for a while, you experienced this sense of satisfaction called gratification, and people call that happiness, right? And then you want more because it doesn't last. You're back, it's like I said, it's a perfect analogy for eating, because if you eat food, you can enjoy the food that you're eating and you feel a certain sense of satisfaction, right? But it's only a matter of time before you're hungry. The same thing is true with the personality. Personality can never be satisfied. So it's always seeking satisfaction because it can't experience satisfaction. And the reason it can't experience satisfaction is because it can't experience anything because it doesn't exist.
Well, it does exist, but to our detriment.
Is your personality actually alive?
I think so. I know you're going to say no, but it feels like it is.
I know. That's the problem. That's the problem.
Say the personality still.
Well, it still exists as a concept. It's a self-concept, but it never existed as a reality. Never.
Because it was manufactured, kind of.
It's made up.
It's made up. It's,
Yeah, it was made up. Yeah, people, when you were born, people made up a name for you. Yeah, and then they made up a description about you. Yeah, they said, "Oh, that's Joyce." Right? It's all made up. None of it's real. Right?
And then it's part of your conditioning or your whatever, your surroundings. That also helps make up the personality.
Yeah, because everybody else is conditioned too.
right.
So we're all crazy. That makes us all sane. Right? We're all crazy. That makes us all normal. Right? But
Because crazy is normal.
What's that?
Because crazy is normal?
Yeah, it is. Look at the news. It's pretty normal, right? People are being crazy all day long, right? So the opportunity is to allow yourself, through coming to this class and through continuing to pay attention to the teaching and practicing meditation, to weaken the ego And if you start to weaken the ego, you'll know you're succeeding because you'll start experiencing anxiety. If the ego gets weak, you'll start experiencing anxiety because you're leaving. You know, you're moving away from the identity, right? And that means the identity is experiencing the possibility of death. And that produces anxiety. It's like David said the other day when he was talking, he said, when you get your personality, you've bought a ticket to the Titanic. Right? Because that boat is going to hit an iceberg, just like your personality is going to hit a death. Right? So when you got a personality, you now have a ticket to the Titanic. Now you're on the Titanic. And on the Titanic, the only thing you can do is either keep trying to distract yourself from the inevitable, right? Keep distracting yourself from the inevitable. Keep chasing pleasure, you know, keep chasing happiness, pursue happiness and so forth. And this can take up all your energy for the rest of your life. And that'll be the end of it. Right?
How do you get off the Titanic? What did you say?
I would get off.
Good question.
Yeah.
Good question. And here's the answer. How do you get off the Titanic? By realizing you were never really on the Titanic. That's how you get off. The thing is this, the bottom line is this, is that there's nothing wrong here. Everything that's happening is what's supposed to be happening. If you could really allow yourself, that's why Ramesh Balsekar focuses on that all the time. Because if you could actually experience that, you'd relax. What is there to worry about? If the truth is true, is there anything to be concerned about? Whether you're experiencing that all the time or not. Even when you're not experiencing it, that's why we call these teachings and these practices refuge. From what? From the thought process. You know, because the thought process is the activity. See, the one thing that the self-concept can't deal with is stillness. It needs activity. Thinking is an activity. Without that activity, the personality goes out of existence pretty quickly, right? So if you attempt to practice meditation, the thought process will continue to try and regroup. It'll keep trying to regroup. That's what's happening. It'll keep trying to regroup. Get you to be afraid of something so you can think about it and worry about it. That'll be the regroup, like that. You know? So what other questions do you
So
have?
every time you stop meditating, the voice comes back.
Yeah.
What she said, what comes back?
The voice.
Oh, the voice.
So it means
yeah.
you have to meditate 24/7 to not hear the voice.
No, it doesn't. The point is, if you're clear about the truth, if the voice comes back, it doesn't matter. It's because this isn't about the voice not coming back. It's about your being aware that you're not that. That's all. It doesn't matter because it's not that you're anxious, right? It's just like everything else. The anxiety is just something that appears, just like everything else, right? Happiness appears and it disappears. Anxiety appears, it disappears, right? Fear appears, it disappears. Anger appears, it disappears, right? So if you get involved with it, like you're trying to hold on to it or you're trying to get rid of it, right? Then you're stuck.